Hello and welcome to ED640. I am your instructor, Abigail Sullivan, and in this slideshow, I'm going to walk you through the course. So right now would be a good time to have the syllabus in front of you. You'll find that on Canvas. You should be able to find that on Canvas, and however you like to, if you want to print it out and mark it up, or perhaps you just like to have it on your computer and saved as a document. But I would recommend that you don't just keep it on Canvas. You either save it on your computer so you can open it easily anytime you need to reference it, or you print it out. And it's about 20 pages because we're required to put in all these policies and standards and things like that. So you might want to look at it and print out just the meeting dates and then just the week by week topics and things like that. That would be the most important for you to have. All right, let's get into it. I really think you will love this class. This class is such a delight to teach because when we're in this class, we're diving deep into the actual practical matters that we all care about as teachers and future specialists. It's very satisfying to actually get to try out the techniques with students and try to do the problem solving. Although this class has a lot of theory and content that you're going to be learning, the whole point is to put it into action and actually test it out with the student that you'll be tutoring. And I encourage you, those of you who are working in a school right now, I encourage you to use what you're learning in class and apply it right now in real time to your students. That will be the most beneficial learning experience for you, is for you to get your hands dirty and try it out. Because really, truly, the best way to learn as a teacher is to experiment with actual children and try to solve their learning problems. We can read and read all day long, but unless we practice applying it and see how the children respond, and then we respond in turn to that. So anyways, it's satisfying work, this class. The point of all of this, the point of the degree that you're in, but also the point of this particular class, is to become an expert in your field, whether you're in the reading specialist track, the ESL track, or the special ed track. You are working with students who are struggling for some reason, and you need to be an expert at problem solving and figuring out, well, what do we do? So first and foremost, I want you all to, if you haven't already yet in this program, I want you all to leave this class understanding how complex the process of learning to read is. And I also want you to see the many different ways that kids can struggle to read and the different kinds of learning profiles: dyslexia, dysgraphia, students who are learning English as a second language, students who are struggling with reading because of a consequence of ADHD or executive functioning. Those different reading profiles require a little bit of a different approach in how we intervene with those kids. The overarching umbrella is something called structured literacy, but of course there are different techniques and we might bend our teaching this way or that depending on the learners in front of us. You will also leave this class being a resource to parents and the other faculty and staff at your school. So you'll know enough about dyslexia, you'll know about struggles of learning to read, that you can answer questions from concerned parents or motivated colleagues, and certainly the students that you work with. You'll be able to explain to them why we are doing this work, why we are teaching them in this particular way, and asking them to practice with this way. And on a practical end, you're going to be able to make wise decisions based on assessments. So you probably took the class with Alyssa Arndt, 689, the assessment class. Those were the bigger assessments that help determine special ed eligibility and dyslexia. Now we're thinking about nitty gritty. We know our student is struggling. Whether or not they qualify for an IEP or not that doesn't matter. What we care about is combing through their skills, finding where on that developmental continuum they are, understanding their error patterns, and then designing an intervention. That's it. That's the problem solving. And that's huge, by the way, but that's the essence of what we're here to do. All right, so let me introduce myself. I've introduced the course, but let me tell you who I am. You know, my name is Abigail Sullivan. I got my bachelor's and my master's degree at Gordon College and my doctorate degree from Northeastern University in Boston. My dissertation was titled, I have to check, Navigating the Complex Landscape of an Exemplar Reading Teacher, a Case Study. So what I researched, what I studied was, wow, you know, it's a tough landscape out there in public education. There are good reading specialists. How do they pull it off? What are they doing? What can we learn from their characteristics, their training, their beliefs, their perspective? And then how can we reproduce that? And because that's what I love doing. I love preparing motivated, dedicated teachers to go out in the world and solve reading problems, whether it's small scale through one-on-one tutoring, or if it's larger by working as a reading coach and influencing the way a district works. That's what I love. So this is a dream job of mine. I've been working at Gordon for 10 years doing this work, and I love it. I teach a variety of classes here depending on the year. I've taught the introduction class that you probably had with Liz Scottrin, Principles of Reading, this class, and I teach the reading clinic, 688. So those of you who are reading specialists, we will get to work together again when you do your reading clinic, which is your final practicum where you are trained in Orton and Gillingham. So my experience with children being an actual teacher, let's see. I've been teaching for 15 years. My first job was a second grade teacher, then I worked as a third grade teacher, and then I worked as a school reading specialist. So I've worked at tiny private schools, big wealthy district, big urban district that served middle class, working class, and immigrant families. So I've seen a lot of different systems, which I think gives me some perspective on the different contexts that you all work in, because it's one thing just to sit in a college classroom and talk about all these dreams we have and the work we want to do as teachers, but it's another thing to actually go out in the world and pull it off with real students and real budgets and real coworkers and all the issues that come with all of that. So context is huge, and I don't want us to be living in a bubble. I want our conversations in this class to be talking about the different contexts in which we work. And now I own Cohasset Learning Studio in the town that I live in with my family, and we serve students pre-K through grade 8. I do literacy enrichment for the pre-K kids during the school day and run classes that target and support phonemic awareness, letter knowledge, and just prepare them for, you know, give them those foundation skills that they need for kindergarten. And of course, then we offer after school tutoring for the big kids, mostly those who struggle with reading and writing and have that profile of a dyslexic student, but also we do a little enrichment too. So this year we're doing everything because it's a COVID year. So our business model has changed greatly, and I actually hired a ton of Gordon graduates because the people who come out of this program are smart. You know what you're doing. You work hard in this program and you're the best of the best. So I've had many people in my community remark, where are you finding these teachers? They're so good. And it's you all, it's Gordon College training. So I'm very proud to work here and, you know, just be connected with people like you who do such great work. All right, when we meet in class for our first Zoom lesson, I'm going to want to know about you and where you come from as well. So we can skip this slide for now and go back to it when we are live on Zoom. So our course, in terms of our assignments, our course has a few different chunks. There's the readings and the quizzes. So you know, I've emailed you, you've got your 2 textbooks that you'll be required to read, and not every week has a reading from the textbook. One of our texts has quizzes that go with it. One is going to have some discussions. You have an assignment called the Digital Resource Manual that's due the last weekend. or the last week. And then you have the most important thing is your 10 tutoring lessons, a written report that goes with it, and a presentation. An additional 5 hours, so you have to have 15 field-based experience hours. 5 of those hours will actually just be covered watching videos in this class, so don't worry about that. It's just 10 tutoring hours, and the other 5 hours will take care of a different way. And then there's an assisted technology lab, which I've been asked to tack on to this class. I think it's a 1-credit course. It makes sense to take it at the same time as this class because the content is similar and it matches. This class doesn't get into assistive technology and how that can benefit our struggling readers and writers. So this little other course does. I'll talk about that in a minute though. All right, so as you know, you've got 2 books for this class. Let's start with Dyslexia, Dysgraphia, Oral Written Language Learning Disabilities, and Dyscalculia. That is the Berninger and Wolf book. This one is going to have chapter discussion. So chapters 1 and 2, which you're supposed to read the first week, there's no student who's responsible for those discussions. That's just, the introduction to the book. But then all the other chapters 3 through 14, I think, those are up for grabs. So you can sign up online in Canvas and you can pick one of those chapters to be an expert at. You will think of maybe 2 to 3 questions, and when you come to class for Zoom, you'll present those questions to the group. Probably we'll just have you do your best one, but in case the one that you ask is kind of a dud and we don't end up talking too much, you'll have a backup question. So the idea is you are going to lead us in a discussion rather than me talk at you endlessly. I love talking, I could do it nonstop, but instead of me doing all the talking, I want you engaged, and you all have so much to say. And especially on Zoom, it's really important to pull people out of their shell so that it's not just me blabbing on and on. Okay, so everybody's responsible for reading every chapter, and you each will have 1 chapter that you're an expert on. Okay, MOTES, From Speech to Print. This is a really important book in the field of literacy. This is one of those seminal works. Now, this is the 3rd edition. My screen, this just came out in 2020, so my screen, I forgot to update that picture there. But everybody who's a reading specialist, please keep this book. Do not sell it. Don't rent it for the semester. You will need it again in 688, the reading clinic. So it's something you're going to want to own since you're using it in 2 classes and because it's like the book. Okay, there's going to be quizzes on this every time you have a reading. There's a quiz that goes with it. It's like about a 10-question quiz. Now, these quizzes, if you failed every single one of these quizzes, you wouldn't fail the class. It's not going to impact your grade that much. The point of the quizzes is just to give you a little kick in the pants and help you learn your content knowledge. You can't be an expert teacher of reading and writing unless you really have deep understanding of the English language. Okay, so we're going beyond just vowels and consonants here. We're going to get deep, but when you get deep, then you'll be able to analyze your students' errors better. When you look at the things that your students are making mistakes with reading, spelling, and speaking, then you'll start to understand the patterns, and then you'll start to understand the problem, and that will help you choose the right solution and intervention. Okay, so the point of the quizzes isn't really, the grade is not the big deal. The big deal is just to give you a little push so that you can see how you're doing with your content knowledge. All right, because we want you to leave this class feeling like an expert in everything related to literacy, it helps to have all these references and resources at the ready to share with families and colleagues and to select from when you're doing your interventions. So we want to give you a little push and give you an opportunity to catalog these resources. So some of these things, of course, that's my job to tell you about, and I'm going to be presenting materials to you. Those are not the resources we want you to catalog. We want you to spend some time doing a deep dive on the internet, going down some rabbit holes, and gathering really useful resources that will help you as a specialist and as an interventionist. So the syllabus will explain this more, so I would ask you to pause me now and open up the syllabus to the part where it explains the resource manual, because if you have that outlined in front of you, you'll see what I'm talking about. You're going to have 25 resources listed, okay? So 25 items listed. Those things could be a set of decodable books, a webinar series, a website, a particular book, a blogger, things like that. But there are different categories, so we don't just want them to be all geared to one thing. We want you to be well read and your knowledge to be broad. So that means you'll have, as you can see the categories there, I think there's like maybe 10 categories I have listed there. And I believe it says that you need to come up with a resource for, 2 resources for each category. So that gets you up to 20 resources. And then the other 5, you can decide how you want those. So you might have 3 from a certain category or 4 from a certain category. You have to have 25 in total and definitely have to have 2 resources per category. So the idea is these are things that are kind of new to you. Maybe I mentioned them in passing and then you jot it down and you go look it up later and you're like, whoa, this is just what I'm looking for. Or maybe not. Maybe you start with one of my resources and then you see all these references and you go from there, At the very back of your syllabus, you can flip there right now, there's a whole list of websites. Those are places for you to start. Now, don't just list the website in general. For example, don't just list Reading Rockets, because if you went to Reading Rockets right now, there would be literally thousands of items on that website for you. Instead, I want you to do a deep dive into Reading Rockets. Find an article, find a video, find, I don't know, something, a book list. And these are going to be things, I want them to be personalized maybe to you and your practice. So think about what your future job is. Reading specialist, ESL specialist, special ed teacher, and try to think of what you will need to be able to know and what you need to be able to share with people. And try to get that catalog going. That's the point. So in the end, what you're going to have is it's probably going to be like a 2, 3, 4-page document with just the bullet points listed of all these items. And they should all have a live link so I can click on it and see what you're referring to in case I don't already know it. All right, here's the big piece. Now I've emailed you about this ahead of time because I wanted to give you a little bit of time to think about who you might select. But the big part of this course is actually testing out the tutoring, testing out the techniques and the role of a tutor. So you can imagine, we could pretend that what you're doing is your future work as a reading specialist, ELL teacher, or special ed teacher. That's what you can imagine. But you'll be doing this, I don't know how you'll jam it into your schedule, after school, before school, weekends, whatever works for you. And you'll be tutoring a student for 10 hours. Now, I might have said 15 hours, I confused myself. The class has 15 field-based experience hours. Janet has given us permission to have 10 of those hours be the tutoring, and the other 5 hours are watching videos of exemplary teaching, or just teaching in general, maybe not exemplary, and then maybe you'll be critiquing it. So it would be ideal if you selected a student that is struggling with reading, spelling, fluency in some way. The point isn't to teach a typical student. This is intervention and differentiation, this class. So the point is to tutor a struggling student. Obviously, you want to choose a child that you have access to. So if there's somebody who's absent all the time or has poor internet connection at their home, or who's going to be traveling a lot, maybe that's not a good choice for this class, because you want to get your work done. So you want to have somebody that you can count on. I do recommend that you begin immediately. So I think, and I don't mean before our Zoom class, wait till we meet on Zoom, but then maybe schedule your first lesson sometime after week 2 of our class, after we have that second meeting, and you'll be ready to go after that. You're not going to change lives here. You're only tutoring them for 10 hours. So it's okay if your progress with this child is like really small, because that would make sense. Usually it takes me about that amount of time, 6 to 10 lessons, to feel like I have really gotten in a groove with the student. So that you'll probably be ending your tutoring just about the time when you're about to make some serious headway with them. So I realize that's a little frustrating, but I also know you can't do free tutoring forever. So you're welcome to, of course, continue this if you please, but for our class, we only require 10 hours. I'm not going to say when the due dates for each of your 10 lessons are, because everyone will be on a different schedule. So instead, I have put in a spot for you to submit 10 lessons, and as you do them, you'll just type up your notes and then submit them digitally. That way you can stay on track. That way I can take a peek at them, and if you're really off base, you know, I can get you some feedback so that the whole thing isn't I don't want you to be wasting your time doing the wrong thing or being frustrated. I want you to feel supported throughout the whole time. I will be giving you a template to practice. You'll be doing structured literacy. So the template you'll be using is going to be different than a general ed lesson plan. The good thing is you don't have to do things like state standards and all that business. What you have to be thinking about is the specific skill you're teaching and how you're going to break that up for your student. This is a huge project, so we're going to talk about this much more extensively than just on this slide. Okay, so as I mentioned briefly, 613 is the Assistive Technology Lab. This is completely online and completely self-paced. There is no instructor that that you owe work to throughout the course. It's actually ungraded as well. It's just a pass-fail class. So you go through these 4 modules: readings, videos, quizzes. I don't think you buy any books. It's just all, online. And it goes towards both your reading license and your special ed license. So moderate disabilities. If you are ELL, you do not need to sign up for this. But reading and moderate disabilities people, you do. It doesn't have to be done right now during 640 if you're overloaded, but it just happens that the material kind of overlaps. So it's been suggested that I recommend this to you now. But you just have to, it's part of your graduation. You get a credit for it. So it's part of your requirements, but you don't have to do it now. So you can register for that just like you register for other classes, and it'll just be on Canvas, and you just kind of like click, 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 go through things and submit things. And it's just going to take some time to do it. Like, you just buckle down and do it, but it's not like you're writing papers or anything like that. All right, we got through all the content for the course overview. So hopefully you've been able to look through the syllabus and I've talked you through it. This will just make it easier when we meet live on Zoom. We won't have to do a deep dive into the syllabus. I am always available for clarifying questions on Zoom or over email. So when we meet together on Zoom, let's unpack the big assignments a little bit more, especially the tutoring piece. But at least now you've gotten the big picture of what is expected. All right, I'll see you soon.